As we mark Veterans Day and celebrate those who have served and sacrificed, we are taking a look at a group with a mission to connect veterans through adventures in mountain biking. The Dirt Therapy Project is a nonprofit. It's started by a retired Marine, and it aims to restore the unique sense of camaraderie that former service members often miss and help some heal from the wounds of war. Omar Villafranca caught up with these weekend warriors in the Texas Hill Country. All downhill from there.
Army veteran Travis Strong is no stranger to heart-pumping action. From skydiving to skiing to surfing, Strong says he's always been a bit of a daredevil. But after surviving a life-threatening battlefield injury, he now just wants to show himself and others that anything is possible.
November 27th of 2006 was when it actually happened. We were just doing a night mission. It kind of started off really weird. Quiet.
Strong was on his second deployment to Baghdad when a roadside bomb tore through the armored vehicle he was riding in.
It took my right leg off instantly, and my left leg was kind of really mangled. But I didn't feel any pain. I didn't know I was even hit at that point in time. And then everything just started to go black. I can feel myself just like draining out. Like my life's just draining, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna die. Like, I'm dead.
Doctors at a field hospital were able to save his life, but not his legs.
At that time, I was just trying to think of what my life would be like without legs and just trying to figure out what can and what can I do, you know?
The cans now far outweigh the cannots. Strong even hopes to summit Tanzania's Mount Kilimanjaro next year. But today, he faces a slightly smaller peak, hitting the trails on this adaptive suspension trike.
So this is gonna be your first time coming down the mountain?
Yes.
What are you expecting?
Just have fun. Go down.
The trike was loaned to him by a nonprofit started by another combat veteran, Jonathan Hagerman.
I grew up in a military family. My dad was Air Force, and so it was always kind of something that I knew I wanted to do.
After 4 years of service, including a deployment to Afghanistan, Hagerman returned to civilian life and went back to school.
What were you missing after you left the Marines?
Man, that's a tough question. You build these bonds and these friendships that you can't make anywhere else. For 4 years, I had been on active duty. Every single day I woke up, I knew what I was gonna wear. I knew where I was allowed to go. And then you separate, and it's like, oh, go do whatever you want. What is it that I want to do?
After a few months of seeing the stress-relieving benefits of this outlet on wheels, Hagerman started the Dirt Therapy Project. The mission? Helping other veterans heal and connect through biking. The organization's first annual Veterans Day event brought 150 veterans together in Texas, including Strong and his girlfriend Brittany, a 2-year Army vet and competitive biker who couldn't wait to hit the downhill dirt.
What are you expecting on this mountain?
0 to 100 with him. He'll probably do stuff where we're all gonna go, what the heck just happened? That's him.
So the brakes are not gonna get any use with him?
No, probably not.
When you're racing or when you're going down a hill, does it give you something that you can't get anywhere else?
A sense of freedom, because pretty much you're equal to everybody up there on the mountain. You can pretty much do anything that they can do.
That was so sick.
This helps me as much as it helps anybody who comes out to ride with us. I'm becoming a better version of myself alongside other folks who are doing the same thing.
I like to lead by example and show what's possible instead of telling other people, hey, do this, when you're doing it too, and they can look at you and go, well, I've got no excuse now.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Omar Villafranca in Burnett, Texas.
David Martin introduces us to a survivor of the Battle of the Bulge, who's in a class all his own.
Well, I'm always glad to see another Veterans Day.
To see this Veterans Day, Herb Stern had to live to the age of 103 and survive the bloodiest American battle of World War II.
19,000 Americans killed?
Yeah, we lost a lot of people. I lost a lot due to the weather, too.
In the winter of 1944, Stern's division had just crossed into Germany when Hitler launched a last-ditch counteroffensive, which broke through the American lines, creating the bulge which gave the 6-week battle its name.
I've never been so cold in my life. You couldn't see, you couldn't move, snow on the ground.
Did you have winter gear?
The Army was not prepared for this weather. We were ill-equipped. We had no bad weather boots. About halfway through the Battle of the Bulge, they issued us rubber galoshes, which didn't do much good, really.
Which was worse, the weather or the Germans?
The weather.
Hitler had caught the Americans by surprise and was aiming to get into the rear and cut off their supply lines.
How close did the Germans ever come to your position?
There was nothing but confusion. No one knew anyone else's location. I decided to walk down a road, and I walked down a couple hundred yards, and this Belgian woman was running up the road, waving, screaming, "Les Boches, les Boches."
The Germans.
Yes. And so I decided I'd better get out of there.
Stern was an artillery officer, and his unit had just been issued shells fitted with a new fuse.
This fuse would set it off automatically 20 yards above the ground. It was deadly.
What made it so devastating?
Use it against troops in foxholes. The burst came 20 yards above you, right into the foxhole. Really very little protection against the burst.
It was a savage battle neither he nor any of his fellow cadets in the West Point class of 41 could have imagined when they graduated on the eve of the greatest war in human history. 40 of them died in that war, and time has now taken the rest. Herb Stern is the last man standing.
I miss a lot of my classmates.
Yeah.
We were a very close class since we, graduated right into the war.
For CBS Saturday Morning, David Martin, Sterling, Virginia.
Vermont is turning purple. No, we're not talking politics this morning. Purple Hearts Reunited. It's a small nonprofit delivering a big impact to strangers who weren't even asking. Now, the military, as you might know, has awarded nearly 2 million Purple Hearts to Americans who shed blood or died in combat. It's estimated that tens of thousands of those medals have lost their way. This group is helping bring them home.
So this is our headquarters here.
What began as a passion project for Army Major Zachariah Fike turned into the creation of Purple Hearts Reunited, a nonprofit aimed at returning lost or stolen military medals and effects to veterans and their loved ones at no cost. On this day in Vermont, we unpacked a cardboard box filled with belongings from a soldier who lost his life while serving in the Korean War. It's a very intimate connection to somebody.
It is. I mean, this was a real person. This was a real hero. He had his whole life ahead of him, and unfortunately, he's not here to tell the stories. So I think it's our job to tell the story for him.
Just as every soldier has their own story, every medal has its own journey, with tens of thousands thought to be lost, stolen, or just forgotten about. Strangers who randomly find the medals often send them to Fike, hoping he'll get them home.
You're looking at 20 to 30 heroes that have...
They begin with only a name, then look to the medal for other clues.
They have changed subtly in the way they were manufactured, in the time period and how they were engraved.
Then Fike and his team of just 2 begin making cold calls.
Once we identify who the families are, I come down and see Dan, and we do a full layout.
Dan Patullo runs the Village Frame Shop in Vermont, helping Fike bring the reactions you see in these pictures to life. What's usually the response from the families?
It brings that family member back in an instant. And the raw emotion in their face makes all the time and effort worth bringing these medals home.
Home for Fike on this weekend is Salem, Alabama, to reunite Pastor David Babson with the medals his late father earned in the Korean War.
He deserved those medals. He earned them. He knows they're with me, and that I can cherish them, and that's the kind of part that I can always have him with me.
Sounds like you're doing it for him as much as you are for yourself.
More so, part of my birth.
Adopted when he was just 9 months old, growing up, Babson knew little about his father, meeting him again only much later in life, and he knew even less about his service to the country, until Fike called.
It takes an act of God, and this was an act of God.
And a lot of hard work.
Absolutely. It's just a great honor to honor your father, who was one of our nation's heroes.
We have not forgotten them.
Fike isn't merely reuniting a medal with a family. He's helping bring their loved one home.
That symbol represents to a lot of these families them. In their own spiritual way, his dad is coming home to his son. And he's going to look at that frame on his wall every day when he walks through that door, and he's going to remember his dad. And he's going to remember that he's a hero.
A lot of heroes in that story, guys. As we noted, Purple Hearts Reunited, a small operation with a massive task. It is a burden that they say that they take very seriously. They rely on donations, and frankly, guys, the donations are often not there. So the group is dipping into their own pockets. They're leaving their full-time jobs, their families, in order to make these donations, in order to make these returns all across the country. And it's just not sustainable is what they fear. So they're challenging Americans to step up, to donate, to help them help veterans in their
to help with the investigations.
Right.
People are listening. The presentation is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's really well
the
done.
look on the lady's face who was appeared to be a hospital bed.
Yeah, nick of time there.
And to say, we have not forgotten them.
Absolutely.
Right. It's
It's very
really
special.
really impressive project.
It is, and it's a lot of work, and they need help doing it.
You can see that.
Yeah.
Hidden high up in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado in a remote and unmarked field is a secret monument honoring war veterans. The Lonely Tower of Granite sits at more than 11,000 feet in a clearing among majestic peaks. CBS Sunday Morning and CBS national correspondent Lee Cowan made the long trek to the Soldierstone to unlock the mysteries surrounding it. Lee joins us now. Lee, good morning.
Morning, Tony. There is a lot of talk this time of year about the spirit of giving, but this is a story about duty that drove one man to build a very special gift that to this day remains a bit of a mystery.
The Continental Divide, that invisible mountain boundary that tells a river whether to flow east or west. But not everything up here is that clear cut. In a stand of trees, impossibly alone, sits this pillar of polished granite. Just what it is and how it got all the way up here has puzzled the hardy few who have found it for decades.
They just stumble on it and go, what the heck is this?
But we still don't really know that, right?
Well, it makes people think.
Rob Roy isn't comfortable talking about this mountaintop mystery, in part because he made a vow of silence to the man who built it, his late uncle, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Allen Beckley, the soldier behind Soldierstone.
And this is kind of contrary to what Uncle Allen may have wanted. He doesn't want to beat the drum, but I'm beating the drum for him, and a lot of other people are.
By all accounts, Colonel Beckley was a soldier. He served for nearly a decade in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War.
If you know anything about Special Forces, Green Berets, they're the people that parachute behind the lines, and they work with indigenous people and help them defend themselves.
But most of what he was doing then, he couldn't really talk about.
Correct.
The troops he trained and served with had been secretly recruited by the CIA. Made up mostly of Hmong and Lao descent, this secret army took tens of thousands of casualties fighting communism in Southeast Asia, lives that otherwise might have been American. But for decades, the U.S. government denied their sacrifice. In a recording Colonel Beckley made after he retired, it was clear that ignoring those foreign fighters haunted him long after the war had ended.
I made a silent promise to myself that they would have their memorial, and it would not just be in Asia, that their memorial would be in the United States as compatriots of ours.
I mean, this was a mission.
In 1990, Colonel Beckley set out to build his tribute with the help of a stonecutter by the name of Mike Donaldson.
So when he first described what he wanted to do, what did you think?
I thought he was a quack at first, and within 30 minutes I knew he wasn't.
Did he explain why he was building it?
It kind of got revealed to me over time that he did want it remote, and the people that needed to find it would find it.
We're just on top of the world.
This long-forgotten videotape documented the construction.
The start of the monument.
Civilians, active duty, and retired veterans made up the small army who unloaded 8 tons of hand-carved granite, not just for the pillar, but 36 so-called quote stones, weighing 300 pounds apiece, etched with a poem or a proverb written in Laotian, Thai, Vietnamese, among other languages, that were then scattered like fallen troops around the monument itself.
What
watch over the ones that this statue is for.
In the summer of 1995, Colonel Beckley's Memorial to Foreign Fighters was finally finished. It was the same year Colonel Beckley died of cancer. He never saw his offering in person.
When we walked away, it was done. That was the end of it. Besides a few people that stumbled across it on the Continental Divide Trail, nobody knew it was there.
Until this happened.
We come across this memorial out in the middle of nowhere.
In 2013, a YouTube post appeared. The secret of Soldierstone was out.
I read that the park rangers keep this location private.
We have tried very hard, as much as we can, to respect his vision, that it would be a spot where people would just sort of find it.
Ranger Tristram Post will help you find Colonel Beckley's Soldierstone, but only if you ask. She doesn't publicize the exact location, and neither will we.
So this is the official folder that we keep in here.
But I've never seen this, which
Yes,
is...
so we will share this.
That's very good.
Rob Roy had only seen pictures of his uncle's dream. Mike Donaldson hadn't seen it since he built it.
So it's not a walk in the park. It takes a little bit to get here. Yeah.
So they made the long drive in fresh fallen snow and then began the long hike. You have to really want to pay your respects way up here.
Mikey, you don't know how much I appreciate you come joining me up here, okay? I mean that. It's cool.
Once there, the solitude is part of the experience, as is leaving a token of military service.
For eternity, right?
After a quiet pause, it was time to go. And they, like everyone, left Soldierstone to its isolation.
Think the colonel would be proud?
Oh, I'm sure he's proud right now. I think a lot of people are proud.
Especially the memories of those now no longer forgotten. Sea lions who've been hurt in the wild are helping veterans deal with post-traumatic stress disorder. It's part of a unique program in Southern California. Up to 20% of veterans returning from recent tours overseas have PTSD, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Carter Evans now shows us how the veterans and marine animals are helping each other.
Feeding time can create a frenzy.
Just toss them their food.
All of these animals were rescued along Orange County's coastline and brought here to the Pacific Marine Mammal Center. Some sea lions are sick, some injured.
Put that right up here. Crinkle came to us with a broken flipper.
Colby Hollabaugh, a former Marine, leads the Sea Lions for Service members course. He's been diagnosed with PTSD. And that's helped him empathize with wounded animals like this sea lion named Zion.
Zion was very badly entangled and pinned down against a buoy. I saw a lot of me in Zion. That Zion thought he was doing just fine. He was going to figure it all out on his own, right? And it's not until someone helps you that you realize how badly you needed the help.
Look at him go. Oh my gosh.
Veterans Lisa Stein and Erica Diatalavi discovered the program while searching for help for PTSD.
A lot of time when you get out, especially if you have PTSD, you're lost. You're nervous in crowds. You have nightmares. You can't talk to anybody. That's a lot like these animals. They have no voice.
Like the military, not all the work here is glamorous, but these vets agree caring for the animals has a calming effect.
It clears your mind because all you're doing is thinking of looking at their eyes and their whiskers and little flippers.
Focusing on their behavior and kind of how almost calming it was to see them. And it's just like, okay, they're animals, non-judgmental.
The Marine Mammal Center has rescued more than 180 animals this year, and some require surgery.
I'm going to clamp off the tube.
Veteran Naomi Prozek watched as a critically ill seal was tube-fed. Seeing an animal fighting for life triggered memories.
Everybody was scared. I know for me, it was my emotions. I couldn't control my emotions at all, and I felt like I was really weak.
But each found strength working alongside other veterans, and bonds formed, just like the sea lions.
It was life-changing.
What is it about putting veterans together? It seems to create something special.
They can feel like a team again, and they can feel like they're doing something positive.
That was so much fun.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Sweet.
They can look in their eyes, and they can understand that the animal has struggled too. And the animal isn't weak. It's not broken because it needed help.
When the animals recover, the vets are invited to witness their return home. And like battle buddies in the military, they're released with a friend to help them find their way.
It was very emotional because they were onto another chapter, and it felt like that was like what I was dealing with, onto another chapter.
No! It's just like you learn in the military. Sometimes you're gonna have to crawl along under the barbed wire, and that's just what you have to do until you find yourself getting that stride of service back.
It's a new mission for these veterans, helping sea life to heal, and maybe healing their own invisible scars along the way. For CBS This Morning, Carter Evans, Laguna Beach, California.
Americans, of course, are marking Memorial Day today with heartfelt ceremonies to honor service members who sacrificed everything for this country. Those sacrifices still a vivid memory for veterans who were captured during the Vietnam War. 50 years ago this month, 591 newly returned POWs were special guests of then-President Richard Nixon at the White House. And those reunions became a time-honored tradition for the group. Many of the remaining POWs gathered again last week at the Nixon Presidential Library near Los Angeles, and they say this could be their last reunion. Carter Evans was there.
Each one of these men was a prisoner of war in Vietnam.
3, 2, 1!
Together again at a reunion half a century in the making. A parade of veterans hailed as heroes, a word that still makes them uncomfortable.
POWs, we don't want people to honor us or call us heroes. We're not heroes. We just served our country and we got back with our families.
Lieutenant Commander Mike McGrath was a Navy pilot when he was shot down over Vietnam. He spent 6 years in captivity at the infamous Hanoi Hilton, enduring brutal interrogations.
They tortured us. They broke every single one of us.
I got a wife and 3 little girls back home. I certainly wanted to see them again.
When Navy pilot Lieutenant Jack Inch was shot down, a captor amputated his injured thumb with no anesthesia.
No need for that. You have caused pain in our country. Now it's time for you to suffer.
The torture was just too painful, and so I gave in. And I felt very guilty about that.
Did you feel like you betrayed your country?
I did. I did.
Devastated, Lieutenant Commander Charlie Plum eventually confessed to a higher-ranking prisoner. The response?
Hell, everybody broke. There's not a man in this prison camp who was as strong as he wanted to be.
They communicated at great risk through sign language and a complex Morse code.
That's us, tapping and tap code through the walls. That was our line of resistance.
That's what got us through. One guy would be down and you pick him up.
When the surviving 591 Vietnam POWs were released in 1973, they came home to ticker tape parades, much to their surprise.
It was somewhat confusing, because, we were the guys that didn't accomplish our mission.
Never has the White House been more proud than it is tonight because of the guests we have tonight.
President Nixon invited all of them to a party in Washington, still the largest dinner ever held at the White House. Recreated right down to the china and silverware this month at the Nixon Library in California.
This is the book I gave President Nixon personally.
Now, a retired Captain McGrath documented his time as a POW with drawings that he turned into a book displayed along with other memories.
This is the actual uniform you wore?
That's the actual uniform.
After returning home, 90% of the POWs stayed in the military, and many found success in civilian life.
There's 27 of us made Admiral and General.
Now, mostly in their 80s, they worry about a country divided once again, repeating mistakes.
Didn't we learn anything from Vietnam?
Their lesson.
We're certainly much stronger collectively than we are individually.
So here we are 50 years later, we're still sticking together.
You didn't give up.
We didn't give up.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Carter Evans in Yorba Linda, California.
Gold Star families came to the Cameo Theater in Fayetteville, North Carolina to preview retired Green Beret Scott Mann's Labor of Love.
I wanted to tell the story about the last out, those who keep going back while the rest of the nation goes on about its business.
Mann spent 23 years in the Army, 18 as a Green Beret.
Every mission has an objective. What's your objective?
My objective with this film is to inform the American people on the cost of modern war.
A cost that man knows firsthand. The story behind Last Out begins in 2013 when man left the Army. Like so many veterans, he said his experience transitioning to civilian life was like a punch in the gut.
I'd gone from like this high-performing Green Beret to just another guy. And, you know, standing in my closet one day holding a .45, not intending to walk out of it.
Swapping his Special Forces training for writing, man found an outlet.
I think for me, I've always been passionate about telling the stories of the men and women who I served with. I found it as a way for me to heal. It's very cathartic.
In the play's opening scene, man's character, Danny Patton, is killed in a roadside bombing.
That's me! I think he really embodies every warrior that we lost along the way.
Joining man in the film is Lenny Bruce, also a former Green Beret with over 20 years of military service.
I saw a lot of my life in the script, so I was brought to tears.
The play also helped the cast heal old wounds. Just minutes into the production, Bruce's character tries and fails to save Patton.
When I was in the Philippines, I was doing CPR on a soldier and I lost him. It's in my head every day, but I don't blame myself anymore for a lot of things.
Patton's wife, Lynn, is a raw portrait of strength. The connection for Gold Star spouse Dodie Callahan was immediate.
Just like what the Pattons did in this show, we started this journey together, and we were supposed to end it together.
Dodie Callahan's husband, Keith, was killed in Iraq 14 years ago, leaving her to raise their 4 children. Brooke was their youngest.
I feel really grateful that there's something like this out here for people to be able to watch.
If it can show one person the life that a military service member, Gold Star family, what they feel, even for a split moment, it's positive.
When COVID set in, the veterans got the story on tape, and this weekend it lands on their website.
I hope, if anything, what people take away from this film is the need to let go of the pain.
And on this Memorial Day weekend, with U.S. troops leaving Afghanistan, the respect for service.
I think we as citizens have to have some kind of emotional feel in our gut of what it means to go to war.
Thanks for sticking with me. That's what we do, Green Beret.
For CBS This Morning, Catherine Herridge, Washington.
Oh, good girl, come on.
These days, you can find retired Marine and mom Jessica Rambo living in the woods just outside Atlanta.
Sometimes I can't believe how far I've come.
It's her first home with Roots, a place she intends to be both a refuge and an art studio for veterans struggling with their mental health.
When you leave the service, there's no transition, there's no detox, there's no how do I become a normal human being again, and it's extremely difficult to get a veteran to open up.
Through art, she says veterans can find a way to release and heal.
What is it about art therapy that helps them?
I think it's just being able to create something or tell a story without communication. They can be alone in their safe place, and it's just another tool in a toolbox. I call it creating your own mental health care package.
Born into a big military family, Jessica always had 2 loves, her artwork and the armed forces.
Did your mom encourage you to join the military?
Absolutely not.
She wanted anything else?
Anything else. You know, I was an artist, I was creative, but I knew I wanted to do something bigger and greater than myself.
In 2006, she enlisted with the Marines and traveled the world as a combat camera person. But only 4 years into her dream job, Jessica was in a car accident that forced her to retire early. She suffered a traumatic brain injury, internal damage, and became addicted to alcohol and painkillers.
I had a failed marriage. My relationship with my children really was affected. And so I knew that if I was going to save that relationship, I had to end all be all. And one of my children had said something that really affected me, really hit the root that I needed it to hit, and that was it.
What did they say?
Every morning he was missing breakfast, and he said, "Mom, can I please go to school tomorrow? I'm hungry. I have to wait till lunch." And that was unacceptable to me.
Breaks my heart.
Yeah, mine too. Just reliving how that was back then.
All the things that keep tripping you up.
Jessica got sober and rediscovered her other passion. She enrolled in art school, which helped her overcome her own struggles with depression and anxiety.
That really gave me a new path, a new way to serve my community.
That path was the Paint Can Project, a mission to bring ammo cans filled with art supplies to vets across the country.
With the logos for me.
She bought an old school bus, named it the Painted Buffalo, and hit the road.
Thank you, sir.
Why did you call it the Painted Buffalo?
Bison have been used and abused through United States history and then kind of discarded. And the veteran, the same way, were used and abused for our country, and then some of us feel like we're discarded.
Hi, I'm Jess, and I built this schoolie for my family and I.
The road trip journey started in 2019 with her son Liam, crisscrossing the country. They've hit 38 states and helped hundreds of veterans battling mental health issues.
We're hoping to be able to get the veterans to make some pinch pots.
On this day, we rode in the Painted Buffalo to a nearby art event. The bus she now calls her old home after 4 years on the road.
You're in the living room.
I'm in the living room.
Yep.
And where are you?
I'm in the captain's chair.
At the American Legion Post 245 in Adairsville, Georgia, the room is filled with veterans there for one purpose.
Trying our best to spread veteran awareness and mental health recovery, and our way of doing that is through making and telling stories.
The impact seen almost immediately.
Hard sleeping.
Yeah.
Hard getting in a regular rhythm.
Lamar Wilkie was in the Army for 3 years in Vietnam. The 75-year-old says alcohol used to be his coping mechanism for stress.
Is this helping?
Yes, it helps.
How so?
Keeps your mind on.
It keeps your mind occupied. And
Creative something.
Sean Allen struggles with PTSD. The 46-year-old spent 4 years in Iraq with the Marines. He found Jessica on Instagram and decided to take a chance.
I feel like playing in the mud like a kid again.
yeah. Free your mind a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of nervous just because I am not used to meeting a whole bunch of people and I don't really get out much. So now I'm doing all right though.
If there's a veteran out there watching this who may be struggling with their mental health, what do you want them to know?
Reach out. You know, I was very alone and quiet about what I was dealing with, but as soon as I picked up the phone and called one of my friends, they were like, oh yeah, me too. And instantly I felt better because I knew I wasn't alone. And that's all of us can do that, whether you're a veteran or not.
So important to ask for help. Jessica is now holding workshops for vets in a new studio on her property and continues to have regular events outside Atlanta. And she is truly an inspiration. Look her up on Instagram, the Painted Buffalo. That's how people reach out to her and they find out about her next event.
A former U.S. Army soldier who says he watched the suffering on television and simply had to do something about it.
This is all civilians living here, and you can see the destruction with your own eyes.
Seeing this with his own eyes is why Ali Medina says he had to come to Ukraine.
I actually don't have words to describe my feelings right now.
In this bombed-out village, he met this 77-year-old woman. Her name is Stefania Nikolaevna, and she's clutching a photo of her son. She says he died defending the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the early days of the war.
This lady did nothing bad to anyone. Look what the Russians did to her house. This is evil. Simply evil.
And many civilians are dying.
The bombardment of major cities.
Russian forces now control most of Severodonetsk.
After watching coverage of the war at his home in North Carolina, Medina became increasingly angry about what he saw as Russian atrocities.
Was there a moment where you go from just feeling bad and angry to saying, I'm going there now?
Yes. So I saw the moms writing their point of contact on the kid's back with a permanent marker, because in case the woman got taken to get raped or got killed, the kid can go to their next of kin. So I'm like, man, I really need to go.
Are you thinking you're going there to do humanitarian work, to be kind of a citizen journalist, or to fight?
Honestly, I had no idea.
What he did know is that he's well trained. He spent 13 years in the U.S. Army. Medina joined after his family fled their native Syria and later Egypt, and he became an American citizen. He deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, but left the military in 2019 after he says he was injured by a missile strike.
So when Ukraine happened, I'm like, I definitely can go and help and also regain my purpose and what I used to do before. Because I got out of the army before I wanted to get out. I had to get out.
He's now made 2 trips to Ukraine, each time packing up several large duffel bags.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Filled with supplies.
So these are the front plates.
Everything from body armor to children's medicine.
So we're packed.
Each time he leaves behind his wife and their 2 young daughters, knowing this could be the trip where he is captured or killed.
Guys, give me a hug. I love you so much. Pray for Papa and pray for the courageous people of Ukraine, okay?
How do you value going over there to help strangers, knowing you could leave your wife without a husband and your 2 daughters without a father?
I think about this a lot. I think that, am I selfish by doing this and leaving my family? But I decide to go there and help because in my book, I think humans should care about other humans in a hostile environment. We're all connected to each other.
It can take a toll. He encountered mass graves in the town of Bucha, believed to be the site of a massacre by Russian troops. In the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv,
all this stuff for you guys.
Medina delivers thousands of dollars worth of donations.
This whole thing was donated from guys from Special Forces in Colorado.
But he doesn't just provide supplies. He also advises and trains Ukrainians to fight and defend themselves.
I give them advice on how they should do certain things on the front line.
That battlefield advice extends to this soundstage in Los Angeles, where he's a consultant for the TV show SEAL Team. It's produced by CBS Studios.
You're literally on a Zoom call from Ukraine in a war zone, giving advice to a TV show about doing fake battles.
Yes, but I thank God for the paycheck because I need it.
That work is funding part of what you're doing over there.
Yeah.
Given the risks that you're taking, what will make this all worthwhile for you?
We're Ukraine to win. I think the whole world should learn from the Ukrainians how to love our country, how to fight for our freedom. And you have the support of all the world.
And he plans to do everything he can to help them win.
I promise you, I will help you with this house.
And rebuild their shattered lives. For CBS Mornings, I'm Ben Tracy.
In rural Virginia, an ancient trade is being molded into modern medicine.
It took us from, where we were just scraping and brought us to where we're living again.
They're like angels.
Those angels are Steve Hotz and Dave Seitz, Gulf War veterans who last year founded Black Horse Forge to help military families like U.S. Marine Sean Mack and his wife, Brittany.
When you come here, it's like a different place almost. Like all your troubles and worries and everything, stay at the driveway, and then you get a little relief.
Relief that comes from literally hammering things out.
You can come here and you can blow off a little bit of steam. You can tell us what your problems are. We're going to listen.
Hotz had these blacksmith tools, but no shop. Seitz had a shed on his horse farm, but no tools. They put it together and now teach classes to vets, active service members, and first responders who learn how to transform something old
We're going to start hammering out
into something new.
They go from railroad spike, prison shank to finished blade.
While also transforming themselves.
I hold everything in, and that might just be the Marine inside me, but I'm like a boulder. They've taught me how to take that boulder, crack it open, and get some of that stress out and talk about it.
Here, no topic is too hot. After all, even tough guys have a melting point.
I get texts sometimes in the middle of the night to say, hey, can I come to the forge?
In the middle of the night, people have called.
They need to have that outlet.
They want to talk about it.
Yeah, they want to talk about it. Indirectly, we're their couch, we're their therapist, so to speak.
And that's the real tool they build together, trust.
It's a comfortable place to be. I guess you could call it a safe zone.
Ready?
A safe place that's made a life-saving difference for some who come here.
When the guy is able to lift the burden while he's here, and then he's got to go home, how far down the road does it get before the burden comes back? Yeah.
Gets you emotional even talking about it.
Yep.
Why is that?
I think it's because we're vested. We've seen it.
Seen it in what they call saves, veterans contemplating suicide who find a reason to live here.
About 3 months ago, my best friend up here tried to kill himself.
Like, literally, I got to his house and basically pulled the gun out of his mouth. And they helped him out dramatically, to the extent that they said, if he's hurting financially, we'll build knives and put them up on eBay, sell the knives, and give him 100% of the money.
Hots and Sights fuel the Forge out of their own pockets and see it as their way to keep serving.
We literally had a bad night one day and walked here at about 5 o'clock in the morning, knocked on his door, and Dave came right out and just talked to us.
We didn't have to fire the Forge up that night. They just wanted to talk.
And find a way forward with new irons in the fire. For CBS This Morning, Chip Reed, Stafford, Virginia.
On this Veterans Day, we asked a group of children to share words expressing their gratitude to Americans who have served in the military. This sixth grade class in Clifton, Virginia, took the time to craft some very heartfelt letters showing their appreciation to previous generations of service members. Those letters are being read by veterans of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam who visit the nation's capital as part of the Honor Flight Network. The program brings them to Washington to see the memorials built in honor of their service and their sacrifice.
Dear veteran.
Dear veteran.
Dear veterans, thank you for your service and support.
Benjamin wrote me a letter and he said, Dear veteran, thank you for your service.
We appreciate your great and honorable sacrifice.
You have performed a proud and honorable duty and sacrificed in a way that few in this present generation can understand
or appreciate. That's powerful. I'm so proud of you. Keep being amazing. Heart, 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 heart.
I like hearts. I know it must have been scary at times, but you kept staying strong, and I'll be forever grateful for that.
Thank you for fighting for our country. You're an angel from God.
I know it is hard to lose a friend, and it was hard to keep fighting for our country.
I can't think or imagine what it would be like to be away from your family and friends for a long period of time.
It starts out, you are awesome.
Thank you for not giving up even when all seems lost, for being strong even when you might feel weak. You have given your life and dedication towards America. You are a strong, brave hero, and I thank you with all my heart. I can't imagine what you have gone through.
We will never forget what you have done with our country, ever. America would never be the same if it weren't for you and what you have done.
Thank you for shaping America into what it is today, and thank you for giving all your blood, sweat, and tears for our country.
Every day we raise the flag. Every day we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I think it's sad that it's not every day we honor wonderful people like you.
Yes, we have memorials, but we don't always say thank you in words like a letter or a card like this. Thank you.
I hope after everything you've done for our country, you will live a long and happy life.
I am unbelievably proud of your service.
You are one of many soldiers that helped lead our country to freedom. You will be honored and known for your great and unselfish sacrifice.
Our country would not be the same without you veterans. All of the veterans out there are all heroes.
I hope you enjoy your flight to Washington, D.C. The memorial is really beautiful. I hope you like it as much as I do. Sincerely, Benjamin.
Yaya.
Hannah.
Liam Palacios.
Maddie. Many thank yous. L. Montgomery.
Thank you very much, Ella.
And very thanks to you, sweetheart. This is a great letter and makes me feel really good.
I want to tell Benjamin he's going to have a good life. If you see a veteran on the street, just say hello. It's a wonderful experience for any of us, and it's very memorable.
I'm not used to getting that kind of accolades. It's like somebody in your dreams.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Here at Arcadia Farm, the philosophy is that veterans have exactly the skills that are needed to become successful farmers. And if you're wondering what farmers and veterans have in common, well, the answer is a lot.
Jenny Haskamp spent 15 years as a United States Marine. Now, she's a farmer with a focus on flowers.
These are what I want. Right? I want healthy zinnias.
She learned the science and the art of farming here at Arcadia Farm in Alexandria, Virginia, on land once owned by George Washington.
It's exhausting, it's hot, it's buggy, and it's the most satisfying and the happiest I've ever been.
She began 3 years ago in Arcadia's part-time Veteran Farmer Reserve program that gives veterans an opportunity to decide if farming is for them. For her, it was a perfect fit.
I think it's an incredible program for veterans transitioning from years of service into the next career.
She now farms here full-time and dreams of one day having a small farm of her own.
Being selective with the kale?
About 125 veterans have learned to farm at Arcadia, and most, including Army veteran Marcus Robertson, developed a passion for growing fruits and vegetables.
What are you growing here?
Right in between us, we have some strawberries. To my left, we have some garlic. To my far left, we have cucumbers. We're also growing pumpkins, watermelons, tomatoes here.
What did you feel like that first time you put your fingers in the soil here?
Terrified.
Terrified?
I had no clue what I was doing, or when to do it, or how, or even why, for that matter.
But over 4 years, with help from Arcadia Farm's experts, he figured it out.
Do you think of yourself as a farmer now?
Yes, yes. I'm even thinking of changing my name. Farmer Marcus, just kidding.
Farmer Marcus.
Pamela Hess is executive director of Arcadia Farm and helped create the Veteran Farmer Program. The goal is to give veterans an opportunity to earn a living in a new but surprisingly similar walk of life.
They can work in all temperatures. They can carry very heavy loads. They are great at long-term planning. They are not freaked out by crisis. Farmers and military folks have a very similar mindset when it comes to their work. Farming is a mission-oriented business in the same way that a military mission is. You can't stop at 5 o'clock. You stop when the mission is done.
We caught up with Hess at Arcadia's mobile market, which sells the farm's fresh produce in several underserved neighborhoods in Washington, D.C.
In neighborhoods that don't have grocery stores, that have a high use of food stamps and low car ownership, which means that people have a really hard time getting their hands on good quality, beautiful, healthy food.
Government nutrition benefits are accepted here, and the market's many regular customers say it's the only place in the area with food this fresh.
You love kale?
Yes, you wash it and cut it up, and it holds. Like if you make your salad today and put it in the refrigerator, it's still going to be fresh the next day.
There are many people in this area over here in the apartments who do not have transportation, and they need to have fresh produce.
The mobile market has seen double-digit growth every year since 2012. Hess gives most of the credit to her team of veterans.
Thank you. Arcadia Farm, we don't just grow food, we also grow farmers.
Farmers who, after serving the nation, have found their next mission.
The best part of being out here is realizing that I can succeed, that I can do things I never planned to do, and I can do more than I thought that I could still do.
Allow yourself to see what's possible, to see the potential, to see what you can do. Don't be afraid to dream. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to fail. And know that if we're lucky, tomorrow's another day.
And one other thing, this program is not just for veterans. They also accept some active duty service members who are trying to get a head start on deciding if life on the farm is the life for them. Vlad?
Chip, that last soundbite from Farmer Marcus is one that I'm going to write down.
Don't be afraid to dream.
Don't be afraid to dream.
I was there all the way up until I was wounded.
Far from the foreign battlefields that once gave his life a purpose, former Army sniper Kyle Prellberg has come home.
What does it mean to you to be here?
Oh, it's huge. It's been enormously helpful. To be around more veterans is the big selling point to me.
Prellberg now resides in one of 49 so-called tiny homes, 240 to 360 square feet, built by the Veterans Community Project here in Kansas City, specifically for homeless warriors, men and women for whom life away from the military has been hard.
It got to the point that I didn't really care so much about myself. Stop taking care of myself. Nobody's relying on me, and, it became, what's the point?
Veterans have twice the risk of becoming chronically homeless as other Americans. This neighborhood, where Purple Hearts mix with post-traumatic stress, is designed to get warriors off the streets, back on their feet, and looking ahead.
When I came home from the military, we didn't know where to transition to. You know, I transitioned out of a barracks lifestyle and to living with my parents, right?
Brandon Mixon is a former Army helicopter crew chief and a co-founder of this project, which not only provides shelter, but all kinds of services for vets: mental health, job training, personal finances, and more, for free.
Do you have success stories?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not trying to sound cliche, but every veteran that walks through our door is a success story. And that's just because we're able to remind them, hey, dude, you're not alone. If you're battling with something, let's figure this out together.
I was going through a pretty difficult time.
Jason Kander served in Afghanistan, was elected Secretary of State of Missouri.
How y'all doing?
Almost won a U.S. Senate seat and then ran for mayor of Kansas City before abruptly dropping out.
I was going through a pretty difficult time. Suicidal thoughts, PTSD had really come to a head for me.
But the mission of the Veterans Community Project changed that.
Is the project therapy? For me? Yeah.
The project relies on individual contributions and corporate donors, and today, Kander is in charge of expanding it nationwide.
Some guy living under a bridge comes in here. Yep. Comes in here and is now surrounded by veterans who have a shared experience with him, can help reactivate that sense of pride and accomplishment and that shared sense of community.
Maybe even more.
It restores that sense of dignity, right? That sense that says, hey, look, you served your country, and we're going to treat you like you served your country.
So far, 2,000 other communities across the country have contacted the project to see if they too could start a neighborhood of tiny houses and big hopes. For CBS This Morning, Dean Reynolds, Kansas City.
It's been 22 years since nearly 3,000 people were killed on 9/11, and today we honor those who died and also shine a light on the many Americans who answered the call after those attacks as America went from being a country at peace to being a country at war. Catherine Herridge spoke to veterans of the War on Terror who are taking a new approach to helping each other heal.
Where we come from, you pull the trigger if it solves a problem. I was a problem that had to be solved.
A retired Delta operator, Derek Natalini, told CBS News he wouldn't trade his 20 years of service for anything, but it came with a price.
I felt like I was hiding who I was from everybody. I didn't understand why I couldn't think. I didn't understand why I couldn't feel responsibly. I didn't understand why I hurt so much.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
22 years ago, President Bush was at New York City's Ground Zero. His words galvanized the nation.
And the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
And within days, elite military and intelligence operatives known as shadow warriors became the tip of the spear.
There's a calling. It's got to start there. Your heart's on fire for something.
Natalini completed more than 24 deployments, including Afghanistan and Iraq, where he says door breaches and improvised explosive devices caused a traumatic brain injury, or TBI. After he left the Army in 2017, Natalini says he felt lost and landed in a very dark place.
You had a gun in your hand, and you were seconds away from ending your life.
I had it pressed to the side of my head, yeah.
And you were able to pull back.
Yeah.
Are there other shadow warriors out there who are also struggling?
Well, it's emphatically yes. Emphatically yes.
According to recent VA data, the suicide rate for veterans was 57% greater than non-veterans.
The rate of suicide amongst all veterans, but shadow warriors in particular, is obscenely high.
For more than a decade, Pac Fancher has raised money for educational scholarships benefiting the children of fallen intelligence and military operatives. Through discreet concert events so secret, the name and location are on a need-to-know basis.
You've brought in some big names over the years.
ZZ Top, Peter Frampton, Steve Miller Band, Lenny Kravitz, Sammy
Billy Idol.
Hagar, Billy Idol. We had Brad Paisley.
Fancher is now working with Natalini to launch the Operator Relief Fund, a clearinghouse for specialized services that address traumatic brain injury, stress disorders, substance abuse, among other challenges. The goal is more immediate help and access to innovative treatments. They say 180 shadow warriors have been helped.
We Americans owe these shadow warrior families. We need to get in front of this.
With the deep support of his family, Natalini says this holistic approach helped turn his life around.
Had I had to do that by myself, I wouldn't have come back from that.
With this new mission, Natalini says he feels the same sense of purpose he felt on 9/11.
We have an authentic desire to care for that person and that person's spouse. We are working to get it right one person at a time.
What we learned through our reporting is that there's a real grassroots effort to help these veterans and their families who've also shouldered the burden of multiple deployments and to offer that help in a way that can complement existing VA services. Tony.
Jeez, it's hard to imagine. It's been 22 years. You've got a new generation of military recruits don't even remember, weren't alive on 9/11, and we've got to take care of the ones who were alive and who answered the bell. Catherine, thank you very much.
A 2009 Pentagon study found that women in the armed forces are 20 to 40% more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer than their civilian counterparts. Bringing that issue into focus is one professional photographer who's made it her mission to put a face on the disease. To further express that point, this story will include portraits showing survivors bare-chested, images as raw as the emotions behind them.
Hold yourself up tall, hold your chin up high.
Using more than just her lens to draw out her subjects, photographer Charisse Isis
and lift your chin up.
Captures their spirit.
Beautiful.
Creating transformational images of breast cancer survivors who've lost one or both of their breasts to the disease.
It is unbelievable how open they are with you with that vulnerability. I think they see the pictures that I've been doing and they see these women standing in their power and their beauty and they're like, I want a portrait of me like that.
The photographs, which total more than 600 to date, are part of a collection that's initial idea can be traced back to one woman who'd undergone a mastectomy but still posed topless for Charisse in a boudoir photo shoot.
She said, I have a confession to make. I'm a 12-year breast cancer survivor. I feel mutilated under my clothing. I've never shown anyone my scars. In that moment, I'm behind the camera, like I had goosebumps. I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm witnessing somebody let go of like 12 years of shame. What was it like to be a part of that? It felt magical. I mean, it was as cathartic for me as it was for her. And I realized that I needed to put something out there that put a face on breast cancer, that showed some beauty and courage and grace.
In 2009, the aptly named Grace Project officially began. Charisse collecting stories and taking pictures of women who'd undergone mastectomy surgery with a symbolic goal of 800 portraits.
There are about 800 new diagnoses in the United States every day for breast cancer. And then I thought, what a powerful thing if I could have 800 portraits hanging in one space at one time so you could truly see the impact of breast cancer in America.
For creative inspiration, she turned to the Venus de Milo, a Hellenistic goddess who's broken but beautiful and strong. As for the title,
the word grace stems from the word, it means gratitude. It's the word for thanks. It means a gift. And it also talks about the grace of the body. So it had sort of this whole multiple meaning to it.
And while no survivor story is the same, Charisse has put some in their own category, the Athena Division. Launched in 2015, it's dedicated to military veterans.
Actually, just a little bit right about there, in the middle there.
Like Sheila Johnson.
I joined the United States Air Force in 1985. I did 25 years, 4 months, and 27 days. I'm counting all of them.
Sheila retired when she was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer at age 43.
I want you to think about the strength and the pride.
She credits her military service with some of the resiliency and fight needed to battle her cancer for the last 12 years.
I know that Sheila feels very blessed because she's had a lot of time, but when I started photographing her, like, the emotion just started pouring out of her immediately. I mean, she had tears streaming down her face. If you start to feel emotional, just be with it. Just be with it. Don't fight it.
It took me back when I was diagnosed. You know, I cried when they told me I had to get out to military. But then you're looking at all these flags in the room, and I see the United States Air Force flag, and I was proud. I'm proud to have served my country.
I guess you're never fully done with breast cancer, right?
No. So is Barbara Arndt, who served for 4 years in the Marine Corps, though she also calls her service a confusing time after she says she was sexually assaulted while doing her specialty training at Camp Lejeune.
I didn't report it, I didn't tell anybody, but, you know, I knew you don't talk about that. Come on, we're going this way. Yes, good girl.
Barbara says she learned to push her feelings aside, ones she'd later be forced to face, as she was at age 41 when she was diagnosed with breast cancer.
How did you decide to have the double mastectomy?
It wasn't a thought in my mind. I knew that I didn't want my breasts anymore. I felt like my body betrayed me, and I'm sorry, but I had really nice breasts. I really liked them. My breasts, my hair, and then they were gone. So, you know, I just shut down.
For Barbara, the Athena Project helped open her back up.
When I photographed her, I could see emotion welling up in her, and I think that really surprised her. That's it. Don't fight that feeling. I can see that you've got emotion that wants to come up. And she talked about, you know, you're a Marine, you have to be tough. You've got to just keep pushing through. You know, she did that with her cancer. So she was emotional in her photo shoot, and it was a really beautiful moment with her.
I stood in Central Park topless, and I didn't feel weird at all. I felt really empowered. It was like, wow, like I'm still here, and I was really mindful of being able to watch people objectively, and nobody was like, oh, gross, or put a top on.
She credits the Athena Project with what she called the gift of being comfortable in her own skin.
For the longest time, I thought that I was never going to be with men again. Like, I was just going to become this old maid because, you know, one of my favorite attributes about myself was gone. So, like, what do I have to offer you? I'm never going to take my top off. And the fact of the matter is that it doesn't matter what I look like. It's not about my looks. It's about who's in here. Thank you.
It's a sentiment Charisse Isis never tires of hearing.
You seem to take this scar that for some is shame and you turn it into strength, which is an amazing thing.
Yeah, well, you know, a scar it's the sign that you have gotten through something really big, and you're still here.
That's a sign of a fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. And these women the military women are definitely fighters.
And obviously, all of these breast cancer survivors are one of the things that everyone we spoke with really hopes that this Athena division can do is not just raise awareness. We know breast cancer's out there, but the VA is dealing with a female population that is the fastest growing population among it. And they need to start working towards helping these women battle the disease and find earlier detection.
Many military veterans, as you know, they come home from their service, they carry internal wounds that can damage them forever. Dean Reynolds shows us how songwriters are helping some of them recover with the power of music.
From this building in Nashville and the recording studio inside come the sounds of healing.
Sure struck a nerve.
It's the music of redemption, words of renewal from America's traumatized soldiers.
The scars on my heart tell the world that I survived. But I'm sitting here.
It's called Operation Song, a joint effort with the Veterans Administration to turn trauma into treatment and give a voice to those who've suffered in silence, placing them with real songwriters to make their stories heard. We joined them before the pandemic hit.
I buried many things.
You want to talk about the things you buried?
No.
Brian Zambiasi was a Marine from 1987 to 1993. After discharge, he fell into a deep suicidal depression.
It's been a lot of little things and a long time coming.
And for over a decade was living an aimless existence, aggravated by post-traumatic stress disorder.
I was labeled many different things. I was highly medicated, many pills every day.
And that medication worked?
It made me numb. I really don't know where to start.
We'll start at the beginning. I'm here to write your song. I'm here to write your story. You have to make it honest and real. And
Operation Song paired Zambiasi with singer-songwriter Jason Seaver.
a couple of suicide attempts and all that.
Really?
Yeah, with paddles, it was pretty bad.
Gosh, man.
That's why I had the brain injury.
Wow.
I did it to myself.
In a room that smells like whiskey and last night's cigarettes.
In just 4 hours, a song emerged and a catharsis.
Going over my regrets. You know, that kind of
heavy.
The immediate result of what music does and how powerful it is something really, really cool to witness.
Phoenix rising, bird that's flying away from all of this.
So far, the stories of more than 800 men and women have been told this way.
I'm sorry. No, it's good. This is good.
And it's the music that's designed to give these veterans a feeling of resilience, of overcoming.
No one judge me.
It's impossible to know if this will have a lasting impact, but for one weekend at least, the darkness parted and the light broke through.
Now I know John, and John knows me, and that makes two of us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Dean Reynolds, CBS News, Nashville.
1 in 5 American veterans who were deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. One former British soldier has found a unique way to rebuild after the trauma of his service tore his life apart. Roxana Saberi visited him in Wales to see how he is now helping others.
Day after day, Mikey Allen hauls stone after heavy stone, and log after log up a mountain in Wales.
So this is it?
Yeah, this is the castle I've been building now for the last 3 years.
Allen didn't plan to build a castle at first, but as the foundation took shape, he began rebuilding something else, his spirit.
The goal is created some form of hope. It's kept me alive to a certain degree.
Kept you alive?
Yeah, I think so.
Skill and luck kept him alive when he served with the British Army in Afghanistan over a decade ago. But death was never distant. One day on patrol, he saw an Afghan police officer step on a Taliban mine.
What happened then?
There's a big explosion. Me and my colleague went sideways, getting across the floor. Best way I could describe it, looked like his legs had been stuck together with super glue, just all different directions. His torso was twisted sideways.
Back in Wales, Allen suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder.
You come back and you feel a different person.
He left the army and turned to drinking and drugs. His marriage broke down, and one day, so did he.
And that's when I just kept eating painkillers and eating them, with the hope not to wake up.
But you woke up.
I woke up the next day, and that's when things went really bad, though, to be honest.
Homeless, Allen searched for solace in the solitude of these mountains. He made a wooden cabin, but within months, local authorities demolished it, sending him spiraling again. Then a nearby farming family learned of Allen's plight and gave him a chance to start over on their land. As Allen pushed his body to its limits, carrying up to 130 pounds of stone at a time, and chopping logs, barely resting, he found purpose and calm.
Putting the stone together is like mindfulness, like a giant jigsaw, so you can kind of just forget, be in the moment. Yep, please.
And he found love again. Rachel Whiting lost her husband, who was also in the military, to suicide in 2011.
For me, that night, it was complete and utter hell. It's a pain that'll never go.
Has this place helped at all?
Being here and helping him and him helping me, we've grown so much. And even when I feel like I don't want to do much and I'm having one of those days, You'll say, you sure you don't want to chop a tree down with me? Are you sure you don't want to come down and just try one stone run? Come on. Oh, all right.
And 3, 2,
As the castle has grown, their community has too.
down.
Each week, around 100 people visit. Local residents, other troubled veterans, strangers inspired by the 42-year-old. Through his charity called Index, Alan offers fitness sessions, skills training, counseling, a sanctuary nestled in nature and hope.
As bad as things are, there's always a future. It's that belief. The belief is important.
Trauma therapist Gareth Noble says, like his friend Alan, we all face adversity. How we overcome it is up to us.
Do we need to build a castle?
A castle in our head, a castle in here.
Nice.
Alan now lives in a nearby village, but his journey goes on.
I think I'm still in the healing process to a certain degree.
What will it take for you to feel that you've healed?
There won't be need for me to keep doing this.
He plans to finish the third and final floor in the coming months. More space for more healing. For CBS Mornings, Roxana Saberi in the Welsh Valley, Wales.
An innovative member of the U.S. Air Force is spreading joy and honoring her colleagues with her creations using a commonly used military item. She started a company out of her home in Texas that turns old uniforms into patriotic wreaths. And she's lifting spirits one wreath at a time.
Air Force Staff Sergeant Nicole Pompey is using her hobby to help bring military careers full circle. Pompey is the founder of Wreaths by Nicole, which was started unintentionally after posting a picture of an early creation to Facebook.
I was like, hey ladies, what do you guys think? And 20 females were like, I need one. I was like, oh, not intending to sell these, but okay. And my mom was like, all right, let's go. I got some fabric. We're going to cut a whole bunch of stuff before you leave. Let's do this.
She fabricates the wreaths using old military uniforms, some sent in from around the country and some with plenty of history.
When they're like the really old uniforms, like I had to cut these ones up from 1946 and I was like, oh, do I cut them? Oh my God, like history. But I didn't. Yeah, exactly. I want to put a lot of care into it when I make it. The uniform, I respect it so much, so I want to make sure that it's a good quality product that's going to bring meaning and like be worth its money and be worth its time.
You put your soul into it.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love seeing the reactions of people. My made-up slogan is Wreaths by Nicole P, making moms cry since July 2020.
250 wreaths later and an inbox full of requests, their impact is being felt around the country. Retired Master Sergeant Matt Law gifted one to a friend and fellow service member.
Okay. She pulled it out of the gift bag and she was flabbergasted by it because it had her name on it, had her rank, you know, it was the 80 uniform, and seeing how much that it meant to her to see a symbol of what she has done for her through her career, something that symbolizes her service, her dedication, it made me feel really good. And without Nicole coming up with this idea, it never would have came to fruition.
I can't get enough of the reactions of people when they receive their wreaths, and it's really heartwarming to know that you made this thing that caused somebody to react in such a heartfelt way. Like Matthew and his friend. And I watched that video and like she was beyond words and tears automatically started falling down her face. And I was like, that's why I do it.
I love it.
Covering 1 square mile of New York City, Brooklyn's Greenwood Cemetery is a National Historic Landmark. More than 500,000 people are interred here, including the inventor Samuel Morse, composer Leonard Bernstein, artist Jean-Michel Basquiat, and rapper Pop Smoke. It's also the final resting place for an untold number of American war veterans. Now the cemetery is enlisting an army of volunteers to help tell the stories of those who served throughout our nation's history.
Greenwood Cemetery's sprawling grounds, over 476 acres in Brooklyn, New York, has been called a green oasis, a place that serves as solace and peace for some, historical record for others, from its skyline views of Manhattan to its landmark chapel. Jeff Richmond is the cemetery's historian.
It's a constant treasure hunt here. I don't think a week goes by where I don't find out about somebody fascinating who's interred here at the cemetery.
Richmond isn't just talking about the rich and famous. In 2002, he made it his mission to identify the cemetery's military veterans, starting with the Civil War.
At the time, did you know how many Civil War soldiers, veterans were buried here?
I had no idea. We did have one volunteer, and he had been walking the grounds for 20 years, and he had a list of 250. And so I was young and foolish back then and thought that if he had 250, perhaps we would find another 250. And we have well past 5,000.
And it goes beyond just the name on the headstone, with each veteran tied to an online biography. After the Civil War identifications, the Greenwood Project turned to World War I.
How did you go about finding out more about these people?
Well, fortunately with the internet now, with a number of websites, there's just extraordinary information out there. It might be an obituary from 1903 saying, here's this person's story and he served in, and so those are kind of the magic words, served in the 51st New York Infantry, and then we can go from there.
The liberation of every town like this one, Strasbourg, capital of Alsace-Lorraine, requires staggering supplies of ammunition.
World War II is Greenwood Cemetery's current focus.
These are people who were there at Normandy when they landed, who fought their way across the Pacific. Also, we have come across a Rosie the Riveter who went to work. And so just this loving description from her daughter about my mother would dress up for the factory where she was working. And so she would wear this kind of industrial outfit. But the daughter was very careful to point out that after work, she would get back into her dress as a lady and come home to her family.
Families sharing stories and even documenting them.
My grandfather was in the Army and my grandmother was in the Navy as a nurse, and they met while in the Army and in the Navy serving, and that's, history is made.
Catherine Amore is one of about 20 volunteers currently compiling stories and pictures of the cemetery's World War II veterans, including her grandparents, Sebastian and Susan Amore. Her grandfather served as a corporal in the Army's 7th Armored Division, which saw heavy combat in Europe from 1944 until the end of the war. Her grandmother served in a women's naval reserve unit known as the Waves.
Waves learn combat tactics. Okay, Miss Third-Class Yeoman, we know when we're licked.
They met in Louisiana, where the 7th was training, and were married for 41 years after the war.
I'm learning more about how much history is out there of them, whether it's pictures, whether it's just stories that are documented in newspapers. Because I know their lives, I knew what they did, but not necessarily those pieces of history.
Learning about another generation often teaches us something. Have you learned something from this, the greatest generation?
That's a good way to put it, right? I think what I've realized is that every generation has their struggles and every generation has their times that they look back on, and whether they regret it or not, saying, this is what I can learn from. I can learn from this. And if we don't document it, right, how do we learn from it?
Volunteer Barbara Buchholz has been working on the Greenwood Veterans Project from its inception. She is also the daughter of a World War II veteran.
As you've learned about some of the people buried here, it's also made you curious about your own father, who was a veteran.
My father, his uncles, they never talked about World War II, and we never asked about it, even when we were older. And then, unfortunately, when our parents passed, we find the pictures. My dad was in Normandy, he was in Belgium, he was in the European theater, Italy, and it's a new part of my father that I didn't know about. I'm learning about my father. And I didn't give much thought to World War II until recently.
For you, what stood out in learning these individual stories?
Just how important it is for us to remember them and tell their story, and to focus on just what makes life worth living.
Volunteer Jessica Waverka doesn't have a familial tie to any of Greenwood's veterans.
I want to know what motivates them. What motivates them to come from a small Midwestern town to New York? They joined World War II. What inspired them to enlist?
But you'd never know it when hearing her talk about those she's researched, like Private Frederick Budgell.
He was 17 years old when he was enlisted, a few months shy of 18. He went down there on a Thursday. On a Tuesday, he was sworn in, went off to World War II, came back. He had 9 children. He was an iron worker, proud iron worker for 45 years.
We were with her when she visited Private Budgell's gravesite for the first time.
What does it mean to you to see the headstone? This is no longer a stranger. This is someone I have to think you feel like you know.
It makes me proud to be part of his story and to part of telling his story.
It's a pride Greenwood's other volunteers and Jeff Richmond share by sharing the stories of those who sacrificed to serve our country.
Why for you is this so important?
Ultimately, a cemetery is about remembrance. And so these monuments and these memorials that are out there remember the people, but there are stories behind each of these lives. And so we're trying to share those stories and collect those stories, and it's just been a wonderful opportunity.